Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Green Tea Podcast, your favorite astrology girlies. So, today's episode is all about Taurus. Hello, Taurus babies and Taurus season. So, what can we learn about Taurus and how can it apply to all signs out there? So, Emma, let us know what you're feeling during this Taurus season and what it's about.
Yeah, so Taurus season runs from now April to then April toward the end of May. Taurus is a fixed earth sign, which means that its strengths lie in being a maintainer, a builder, a stabilizer, just generally. And some themes that are going to be covered during Taurus season and that you might notice come to the forefront of kind of your life or just the way that you are feeling are themes related to self-worth, material stability, and material security. This it does include money, which we can talk about later, but I know a lot of people associate Taurus with like money and luxury and things like that. It's also the ruler of like our five physical senses and the physical body. And yeah, it's opposite from Scorpio. So there are some correlations there as well as it pertains to resources and comfortability with change and things like that. So yeah, that's Taurus in a nutshell.
Wow. So, when you say it's a fixed sign, does fixed sign mean and what is not a fixed sign?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So a fixed sign is so being fixed is one of the three modalities in astrology. Modalities kind of represent like the role that you might play as like for whatever sign that you are. So there are three modalities in astrology. There's cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. So the cardinal signs are signs that are known to be great initiators, leaders. They kind of like are the ones that get the ball rolling on a lot of things. The cardinal signs are Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and Libra. Then you have the fixed signs, which are more like, maybe they're not the initiators or the self starters, but they're people who, like I said, they're good at managing and maintaining a system once it's been started, once it's been kind of built and needs to function. Um, these are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. And then the mutable signs are the ones that help us kind of navigate change, is how I would describe it. So not necessarily initiators or stabilizers, but people who help us navigate, okay, something is ending. We need to let it evolve into something else. These are Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces. So yeah, the fixedness of Taurus is simply meant to represent that they play a role wherein they're excellent at like maintaining systems and building things.
Interesting. So when you say like cardinal signs, but it's all mixed with fire, air, water signs. So when you said Cancer is a cardinal, so you're saying that there's a like characteristics of that in Cancers and like
Mhm.
other signs?
Yes. Yes. Cancer, so like Cancer and Libra, for example, some people will be like, oh, that sounds interesting that they would be known to be like self-starters and initiators and, not afraid to take the
Yeah.
lead because a lot of what you hear about Cancer and Libra is, Cancer is all about emotions and Libra is very like non-confrontational and they like peace and harmony. But I think it's important to note that while those signs do embody those qualities, if they're ever put in a position where they need to take that initiative, like they are very capable of doing so. So the way that I had learned about astrology, the person that I learned from had given this example of if you are a Cancer and say that you are at the park with your child and somebody comes up to your kid and like smacks your kid across the face, you will see this womanly, motherly, sorry, figure just like get up and defend her child with like everything that she has. So it's not to be it's this notion that like Cancer, for example, is just all about emotions and they're meek and they're fragile and all this
Mm.
is not very true, and we see this in nature with animals as well. Like the way that a mother will step up and defend like the safety of her cubs or something like that is pretty insane. Like what they'd be willing to kind of do. Libra is similar in that it's the opposite of Aries. And so I think that a lot of times signs, well, not I think, signs that are opposite also share qualities. And Aries is very known to be this impulsive action taker and they're not afraid to do things and they're courageous and yada, yada, yada. But Libra also, in its highest embodiment, understands that like it's not here to be walked all over, And so if it needs to put its foot down, usually through speaking up for itself rather than maybe like physically asserting itself the way Aries does, it's not afraid to do that. And a sign that really knows how to utilize words for um, its best interest. Not in a way that's manipulative per se. I just mean like, if it's time to speak up for yourself, it's time to speak up for yourself. And I think the highest embodiment of Libra, exhibits that through its cardinal nature. The other thing that I think is worth noting is that the modalities are also correlated with the seasons. So the cardinal signs fall during the months where we start new seasons. So Capricorn will be the start of winter, Aries is the start of spring, Cancer is the start of summer, and then Libra is the start of fall, technically. The next month in the middle of the season will be your fixed sign. So Taurus, Leo, yada, yada, yada. Like Aquarius is right after Capricorn. So it's like the middle of winter. And then Pisces is the mutable sign that comes after Aquarius. So that would be that last month of winter transitioning into Aries, which is spring. So yeah, it is correlated too with even the seasons of, or at least the 4 seasons that we here in the States, in this hemisphere are living by.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. I'm like, who came up with this? Or was it just the universe collective consciousness coming up with this? Because this is going deep. I didn't even know that's what all these things meant.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, astrology was started a long time ago in like ancient BCE times. And it was a lot of people who observed like patterns in the stars. And, when these planets are doing this thing, we notice these themes happening.
Mm.
Or this constellation is always in the sky when the the sun starts coming out and the weather starts warming up and things like that. So yeah, I think over time it's really developed into like a fully functioning system, but it's also something that like reinforces itself. Like you can make these claims and have all these patterns that you think align. Um, and then society will kind of like, if they choose to kind of live by that or like take that into account, then they also reflect that in the way that they live their life. So I think it's interesting. It might be a system that was kind of designed by humans, but it's also perpetuated and maintained by us continuing to talk about it and continuing to ask
Mm.
questions about it and to, draw conclusions from it. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It just
Yeah.
reminded me of something. I don't know if you'll believe in this, but
Mm.
apparently some people believe that pets also follow their astrology.
Mm.
I don't know, but like for example, I'm dog sitting for my friend's dog right now, and he was
Yes.
born in a Cancer sign, and the dog is very like very tuned with the emotions. When the humans cry, she just runs to me. My one of my cat, it says that she was adopted in March something. I'm like, Aries, okay, maybe. My cat is like super like aggressive sometimes if it has to be. So I'm like, interesting. Do you
Mm.
think pets sometimes follow?
I think it's possible. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't know that consciously they know these things, but yeah, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's very possible that there could be some type of reflection happening with any living being, any living creature, and like the stars. My parents have pets also, and I have figured out now what their signs are. Because I'm like, oh, I wonder what they are. And it's funny because some of them actually do make some sense. There's a couple cats that are Sagittarius, and I do find that they're quite adventurous. Like they're always trying to get out of the house and do stuff, and then there's one that's, I don't remember what sign he is, but he's very scared of everything, fearful.
Hmm.
And his sign, whatever it is, I can't remember, but I remember whatever it was, I was like, oh, that kind of tracks with the way that he behaves. He's very self-protective and not quite as adventurous. So yeah, I do think that that's possible. Even say something that isn't a living being, you can generate charts for, and there can be possibly an energy that's reflected in that. So, for example, when people start businesses, some astrologers will work with you on like vocational astrology or career astrology, and they'll ask you, like, okay, what is your birth chart? And then they'll ask for the chart for your business. Like when you made your business like official, what
Interesting.
was this, right? Like what was happening? And what is the chart for your business? So I find that also quite interesting. I don't know a lot about that, but I think that you could generate a chart for a lot of things, especially like a living being.
So literally, like if I made an LLC back in January, it means like, oops. If it made in January, like it means something according to like the astrology. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and like it might give you some insight into, I'm not exactly sure how somebody would interpret it in terms of, I don't know if it's supposed to represent like like this is the not blueprint, but almost like the kind of blueprint for your business in a way. And it might showcase like certain things that you're doing through your business, like with that. So
Mm,
I think that I looked up mine like 5 years ago when I licensed my business. It has evolved since then, but I'm pretty sure it was licensed like during Libra season. So my business has like a sun in Libra. I don't know what else. I didn't look. But I find that interesting because I started my business and I started it as a life coaching business. And specifically, that's what I do. Like I work one on one with individual clients, kind of like mediating and speaking to them, counseling them in a sense. And that's one of the roles of Libra. It's someone who sits and they work directly with clients one on one. It's all about contractual relationships and um, kind of like connecting with others and helping others improve their lives through um, connecting with them. So yeah, I think it's
mm,
interesting. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if, yeah, if you did that, if you looked
yeah.
it up. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I gotta see when I created my LLC. It was January something. So
Ah, cool.
maybe we'll find something.
Yeah.
But getting back to Taurus, it's really interesting how I think in Wall Street or where it was, there is a bull sign with money.
Yeah.
So I know Taurus relates to money and materialistic. So could you dive into a little bit about that characteristic?
Yeah, definitely. So, um, Taurus is known to rule things like material security, which obviously we most generally equate to money. This could also be like material security could be things like your clothing or the house that you live in or the car that you drive, the food that you nourish your body with, because Taurus also rules nature and kind of Mother Nature and things like that. So that's what Taurus kind of rules. And at the base of it, it really rules things that we value as well. And so obviously through money and possessions, they hold a certain value to us, right? So that's kind of just the general gist and baseline of how that works. Um, but the thing is with Taurus, I think, and we can go several different ways with this, but I'll start here. Taurus is known to have this shadow of materialism, which I
Mm,
think some people um, interpret that as, oh, having brand name items like Gucci belts and Ferragamo sneakers and all this stuff. And I think that that's like one way that you could experience this like overindulgence. But materialism really represents putting a lot of value in material items that perhaps isn't, I don't want to say isn't warranted, but it's like instead of developing a sense of value on the inside or living in alignment with your values, it's outsourcing that value to a material thing and then trying to possess all of these material things to make yourself feel better or more valuable. Um, so I think that that's a really interesting
mm,
kind of like not dark side, but shadow of Taurus. But truly, Taurus will show us the value of living with ease and living in luxury, and it's often more about like how do you utilize the things that you have, the material items that you have, but in a way that allows you to live with ease and in a comfortable way and without feeling like you need to be in survival mode. You know what I mean? So I think that that's a
mm.
really interesting thing about the money and material part is we can perceive that a lot in this day and age of like needing to be flashy and having all the cool gadgets and brand name things to show off to everybody. But the true value I think of the material aspect of Taurus is having material things to bring you a sense of stability so you no longer have to live in survival mode. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but
Yes, and I wanna get into kind of like the outer appearance when it comes to
mm,
astrology. I know you are a Taurus rising, and then I have another friend who's Taurus rising.
mm,
How do you relate to as a rising? But first, getting into the appearance, I know you said like earth signs are generally known to be a bit, you described it as short and stubby
right,
ones.
right. I did say
So,
that once.
yeah, can you go into the
um,
appearance of Taurus?
yeah. So when it comes to physical characteristics, because the rising sign is in the first house, just for anybody who wants a refresher, the rising sign is in the first house, and the first house represents our physical body. So this is why I was saying, of course, maybe short and stocky or whatever is not the way that I would probably want to describe it, but earth sign risings tend to be a little bit more substantial in their build and in their stance. So, for example, it's like somebody who, when you see them walking down the street, like they seem grounded, they seem connected with like the steps that they're taking, and they're kind
Mm.
of like focused on whatever it is that they're, wherever they're going and things like that. And from a body standpoint, it's like, yeah, you might be more, how do you say it? Yeah, just more, I said stocky, but I really didn't want to describe it that way. But it's like, having more of a solid build, not to
Yeah.
be conflated with like being buff and muscular, um, necessarily. I mean, you could be, but they generally could have, yeah, a little bit more of like a substance to their body. And I do think for me that that's generally true. To make this really clear, this might not resonate with everybody who's a Taurus rising. I just want to put that out there. There's a lot of social factors or like environmental factors that can also influence your body shape and your body type, or maybe not type, but body shape for sure. But I do think that it resonates with me. I'm on the smaller side. I'm 5'2", and I do think that I'm like slim and slender, but I do think that I have like some type of like muscle and fat on my body just naturally. Um,
It's like the vibe and energy more than like being able to pinpoint, right?
exactly. Yeah, I would say that the rising sign though really is more about like the energy that you emanate as that sign. So, for example, Taurus rising could be somebody who presents himself in a way that appears very calm, peaceful, zen, kind of down to earth. They're not like like all over the place, flashy, crazy, wild. Um, they're more demure, as the TikTok social media word has put that out there. Um, they also, since they are ruled by Venus and they are all about kind of like luxury and comfort and the simplicity of things, they can often portray themselves through clothing that is more like elegant or classic or timeless. This is generally found a lot with, yeah, like Taurus, even Capricorn sometimes. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that can also be another way that that the rising sign influences our expression, our outward
Mm.
expression. Yeah.
And in terms of maybe personality or how you relate to money as a Taurus rising,
Mm,
how do you view money and materialism compared to other Taurus? Because I feel like you're not someone who's like flashy or cares about brand names,
sure.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say that that's accurate. I think the way that it manifests for me is slightly different. So, like I said before, the materialism thing is not necessarily about the brand names, but it's placing a lot of value in like a material item, almost maybe to the point where it hinders you. So the way that I notice this play out in my life is, you're right, I don't really care much for like brand name things. I don't find that that fulfills me really. But I do notice that I have an attachment sometimes to like material items. So, for example, when I was a kid, I used to collect stuffed animals. I love stuffed animals. I don't know what it is about them. Well, I do actually. It's that they bring me a sense of comfort. And so I would collect them as a kid, and I would like, when I was struggling with feeling crappy, I would hide in my room and like play with my stuffed animals, and like even the feeling of them, they feel comfortable. And like I said, Taurus rules the five physical senses, and I find that when I have things that can soothe the physical senses, stuffed animals would be like a touch thing. It makes me feel like better. You know what I mean? But there comes a point in life where, like collecting stuffed animals is not going to solve my problems. It's like the deep emotional feelings that I'm having. I need to like deal with that. I can't just be like, oh, I just need to touch a stuffed animal or snuggle with a stuffed animal right now to fix this problem. So I think for me, that's more so how the materialism aspect plays out, is it's like being attached to these items that they don't necessarily change something for me. They can be a nice band-aid solution or just something to bring me comfort, but do they help me to do this deep work to process like my deep feelings or like pain or traumas or something? No. um when it comes to money, I think this is a good entry into another aspect of Taurus. When it comes to money, I think I don't place a high, okay, how do I phrase this?
Mhm.
I know that money is a valuable thing and it's necessary to survive in this world. But personally, I do think that there are more important things in life than having a lot of money. However, like, I think part of that also stems from having a bit of like a lack mindset or a scarcity mindset about money, at least, especially in my past. I grew up in a family that was very frugal, and they spoke a lot about making sure that you understand how to get the most value for your money, the highest return on your investment, to not live above your means and to not do all this, to wastefully spend your money. And so I think that's been helpful for me in the sense that I know how to save money, but I can sometimes worry a lot about spending my money and that fear of like losing money and not having it returned to me, which is something that I've definitely had to work on like throughout my life to break this like lack mindset and live in more of like an abundance mindset of, oh, when I spend money, especially on something that is valuable to me, I get something in return. And it's just a cycle of, putting an energetic investment out and receiving something. That's all that money is. It represents that. It doesn't necessarily hold value just because it's a green dollar bill. Um, so yeah, I would say that that's kind of how that relates for me, at least. Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. What
Yeah.
about you? I know you don't have Taurus in your chart really, but I'm curious just to know
How I view
your thoughts.
money.
Mm.
Ah, so interesting. Because maybe because I don't have any Taurus, like I've never thought of that.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, I think that, for example, like I'm reading your notes and it says resistant to change. As a fixed
Mm.
sign, it's and due to its stable nature, Taurus tends to resist change.
Yeah.
Um, One example I could give is like because I'm a beauty creator, yes, I get a lot of stuff, but compared to anybody that I've known, I never reuse or buy the same products or use the same product. I've
Uh,
always changed up my shampoos. Every time it's empty, I'm on to a new product because I want to try new things. There's 100 brands out there. Like, why would I stick to one? But
sure.
then I do have a beauty creator friend. She uses like one item that she really likes, that one brand when it comes to cleansing
Mm.
or shampoo, whatever. So I think when it comes to money, I kind of see it in a similar way where it comes and goes. I try to live in an abundance mindset, but
Yeah.
I think because I like change, I don't like to stick to one thing. I don't I kind of like quickly forget about things in a way.
Mm.
So if something happened to me today where I lost money, I try to just move on quickly.
I
And then
see.
tomorrow I might be abundant or have more opportunities. Okay, let me just focus on that.
Mm.
So I guess the way I think about it is constant change. If I
Mm.
lose, okay, how can I figure this out? Go move on to the next thing. Is just
Yeah.
how I see anything in life.
Like I know you have a lot of Gemini and Aries in your personal planets, and that makes a lot of sense because those signs are the ones that are more, they take the risk, and then whatever happens, they're like, cool, it happened. There's no use kind of crying about it and trying to be sad about it. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna keep finding like a solution. That would be the Gemini, and that
Mm,
constant interest in change. So yeah, I find that interesting.
yeah.
Even within our relationship, I do notice that stand out sometimes where like I can be a little bit more resistant to certain things or like want to have something planned out a little bit more before I kind of jump.
Mm.
Whereas I notice that you take not saying the total opposite approach, but you are more like, let me just jump and like kind of learn as I go and just you got to start something because if you don't, you're never going to start. And I think it's cool because I think being able to find a balance between both of those things is really important. Because for me, I've been spending a lot of time this year doing more of that and being like, yeah, actually, why do I do that? Because there are moments in my life where I am very much like that because I do have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart as well. So it's just kind of jumping to all the next thing. But I'm trying to implement that in areas where I know that I can become stagnant. Whereas for you, you might be experiencing a call to, or like you might have had to learn lessons about like being more patient and like not needing to like impulsively jump to things. So I just think it's funny. Yeah.
That is funny because I just talked to a energy healer, I
Mm.
guess. I'm not saying that I 100% believe everything.
Yeah.
Again, I try these
Yeah.
psychics as content.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I talked to an energy healer, and one of the first things she said is like, "Oh, we need to work on your patience." I'm like, "I'm very patient. What are you talking about? Like, you know my story with like my ex, or like, I've been doing this entertainment for like a very long time. Like, if I didn't have patience, I wouldn't be able to do this."
Right.
Like, so I didn't understand, but I guess like how you're saying it,
Yeah.
patience could come in many different ways.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um,
That's
I
funny.
also have a great example when it comes to money.
Okay.
For example, I lost a lot of money recently due to my past situation with somebody that I was working with, a business partner that I guess, we're no longer working together. I
Right.
lost almost my entire life savings.
Yeah.
And yes, to somebody else, that might be like devastating, which it was devastating for me. Trust me, I cried my eyeballs out. Like, I worked so hard for this. a lot of money. And to have that trust broken, of course, it would be a heartbreak for anybody. But
Mhm.
I quickly realized that I can't, the money is gone.
Yeah,
What I can do is to try to bring it back. But at the same time, I don't know if that's going to happen. So I need to move forward into making my own money from now on and like
yeah,
rebuilding. So I don't know how Taurus would have taken my situation, but me as a Gemini, Aries, Libra rising, whatever, I just realized that like, ugh, if I spend one more month bawling on this, I might, who knows where I would be. Instead,
right.
I changed my mindset where, okay, for the next month, let's try rebuild again. So
Yeah.
I've been rebuilding, and I think that's a healthy way to go about a situation like I'm talking about, rather than marinating in the pain, and trying to get back something that's lost because it's
Yeah.
not coming back.
Yeah, definitely. I think that yeah, and I think that Taurus, like how they might approach that could be totally different based on the person, first of all. But I could see Taurus maybe struggling to move forward with that and kind of like you said, ruminating on the loss of the money. Or I could see them kind of activating that more like grounded bull energy and being like, okay,
Mhm.
let me think about this practically. That sucks, but here's what I know I can do moving forward. Here are the practical steps that I know that I need to take. Here are the resources that I have available to me to help me make a new change. Kind of like for you, it's like, okay, you lost all this money, but you still have these working skill sets. You have a brain, you can make content, you can do other things if you need to mobilize other skills to help you move forward. So there is also the very real possibility that Taurus they are known to be quite headstrong. It shares that with Aries. They're right next to each other. To be quite headstrong and to not kind of back down from a challenge in that way. And it is someone who, instead of like rising to the challenge in like an aggressive and forceful way, it just understands like, okay, we just need to build it back up. I think of it kind of like Legos? I love Legos.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I love Legos. But anyway, you can build like all these cool Lego things. It's like, imagine you spent all this time building this huge like Lego airplane, Lego castle, and then like your cat fucking knocks it over and it breaks. It's like Taurus is like, "Ugh, all right, that's annoying. But now I just have to put it back together. That's just what you have to do." And so it shows up, does a little bit of work, puts it together. And then the next day, puts some more together. And the next day, puts some more together. And so it's not deterred in its highest embodiment. It's not deterred by, having to do something over a long period of time or like knowing that you had suffered a loss. It knows that you can just rebuild from the ground up. And it might be annoying. It might take patience. It might take time, but it's willing to do that. And it's very, very capable of doing that. So that is kind of the bright side for sure of Taurus in that respect.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. All right. Well, going into romantic relationship with a Taurus, if I said, Emma, I'm going on
Hmm.
a date with a Taurus, what would you tell me? Of course, it depends on everybody's chart, but this is just a
Sure.
generalization.
Yeah. Oh, what would I tell you? So I guess, yeah, Taurus people in relationships can be reliable,
Mhm.
stable. They may put a lot of value, like place a lot of value on, for example, like material security. And I'm not saying in like a negative way. Like it just might be very apparent when you meet them that like they have a stable job and like they have a plan for their future like 10 years out
Mm.
and like they know where their 401k is and what's going on over here. Like they're very like, yes, I know all that because they understand that material security is important for like laying a foundation for developing like a longer standing life or future on. So they may be that way. They may be, I mean, they could be more materialistic, flashy, and have like quality things, but they also could just be somebody who, like, they share with you that they love to be in nature and spend time in nature. And um, because the other thing that I wanted to point out too is that even though Taurus also rules like luxury and comfort and ease, it does also rule comfort and simplicity and nature. So like people who just love to go thrifting, you know what I mean? Because to them, like clothing is just clothing and they want to be comfortable and they want to do right by the environment or whatever the case may be. It's a very Taurus thing to do. And I think, not to get sidetracked, but I do think that's funny because I remember when we used to meet up when we were brainstorming, like, let's do this podcast, you would always show up and you were always dressed, not necessarily like dressed up, but you would always be dressed like a person going outside. And I would show up wearing like sweatpants and a hoodie, or like ripped jeans and like a hooded sweatshirt, like every single time. Because for me at that point, I was really prioritizing like the comfort aspect of it. So that could be like another thing that like might
Mm.
become apparent in speaking to them or in their presentation. That comfort is very important to them, and that they may choose to dress even in a way that is more comfortable or more practical versus luxurious. Um, Other
Mm.
things could be they get a reputation for being stubborn, which could be true. You might find that in maybe speaking to them or sharing whatever you're sharing, that they seem kind of immovable in their opinions or in their perspectives, um, which is good and good and bad. And I hate to use those
Mm.
terms because it's so subjective, but yeah, that could be another thing that you might notice. I'm trying to think.
Do you
Um,
notice a lot of Taurus energy people in like finance, fin bros, whatever you call them?
Yeah, that's funny. Is that the term? I don't know per se. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know many. I don't really. Those are not really the types of people that I think I hang out with a lot, so I wouldn't really know. But I will say that I have met several Taurus people that work in finance. But I would actually say that I've met more Scorpio people that work in finance, which is interesting because, like I said at the beginning of this, Taurus and Scorpio are opposites. But one of the themes that they like share is resources. Taurus is more about like your self sufficiency and your personal wealth, whereas Scorpio is about shared resources and like shared resources. So this could be things like inheritances, investments. It's larger wealth that's extending, not just, it's not you personally only, it's also like other people that could be involved in this. Hence the whole, like I said, inheritances thing or investments. Um, and I do find that, Scorpio also has a quality of being strategic. So you can see how in finance, a lot of times, like strategy is very important when it comes to working in finance. Like, especially if you're somebody who's a financial advisor, you're an investment banker, whatever, you're making huge calls about money and decisions about money in very, very large amounts. And it's also possibly not your money, it's someone else's money that you're managing and that you're having to arrange in a certain way or whatever the case might be. And so I do notice actually that Scorpios I find a lot in that arena. So yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, this is so off topic. I'm so sorry, but I
Yeah.
just have to comment that like I
Yeah.
don't know why. I admit I have a stereotype about Scorpio men. I
Uh,
don't know why. I just hear a lot of bad stories about Scorpio men about being
uh,
obsessive and like
mm.
stalker vibes. So you when we get to Scorpio season, I want you to break my stereotype, please, because I don't know why Scorpio men, when I hear that, it just like scares me.
Yeah.
I never
Well,
dated a Scorpio, so I don't know.
well, actually, I think that that's worth talking about right now because one of the shared like things between Taurus and Scorpio is Scorpio has it, yeah, they can have this quality of being a little bit like obsessive and like intense and kind of like, to the point where you're like you said, kind of like, oh, that makes me feel a little uneasy. It's
Mm,
a little harrowing energy. Like, ooh.
yeah.
Um, Taurus is more like possessive. So both of them can experience. Actually, I'm
Mm,
glad that you asked the thing about relationships. With Taurus, you might experience like someone who feels like and I say this lightly, I'm not trying to accuse anybody, but they feel like they own you, like you're property to them. And they're
interesting.
very like, I need to possess you. I want you. It makes me feel safe. And they'll try to, like know where you are all the time or da 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 da. And Scorpio takes, you can see that same energy of it's not necessarily ownership, but they're like stalking or like trying to find that where you are all the time and like know everything about you, and it can feel a little bit like unsettling. They are obsessive about it and they're thinking about you all the time and da 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 da. So actually that's another quality that you might notice in these signs, maybe right away or maybe over time you'll start to realize like, oh wow, like this person really wants control, which is really the factor that they share. It's a desire to be in control, but they do it in different ways. So Taurus is more of like the wanting to own things and claim it and control
Mm,
other people or whatever, through, yeah, sometimes it's resources, sometimes it's just trying to dictate what you can and can't do or things like that. And I want to make it clear again, of course, that you can have this without being a Taurus. Like there are other signs that also show this type of desire for control. So I just want to put that out there. But yeah,
mm.
so that's actually kind of funny that you brought that up. We can talk about the
Interesting.
Scorpio one for sure. Yeah.
Have you ever dated a Taurus or Scorpio?
No, I'm not.
Mm.
I dated somebody who had a Scorpio moon once. And he
Mm.
was definitely, yeah, definitely. I noticed certain Scorpio qualities about him. He was kind of like skeptical, I noticed. Like he had a hard time trusting other people. Not me per
Oh,
se, but like he had that type of energy. Like he was just, yeah, he was always like questioning like his people he was doing business with or whatever, and he was always like, are they out to get me or something? And I always remember being like, I don't know. I don't, I'm not
interesting.
sure.
Because I like
But
to
yeah,
probe and question.
right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, Scorpio. Have you dated a Taurus person or a, I know you said no to
I don't think
Scorpio.
so. I don't think
Yeah.
so. No. I don't I mean, I've only had two relationships. The first relationship, I don't know what his sign was.
Oh yeah.
So I have no idea. It would be interesting to find out, but
Yeah, most of the people that I've dated were
is there a
air
pattern you think? Like, do you see a pattern in like signs you date or
I
no?
do. I
Oh.
do. But this is also like not considering the whole chart because some of the people that I
Yeah.
dated I don't know what their chart looks like. But the only like actual relationships that I've been in were with people that were air signs or fire signs, which is interesting
Oh.
because I'm an air sign, but I'm dominant in fire. So Gemini, Leo, dated Gemini, I've dated Leo, I've dated Libra. So I've dated the other two air signs other than myself, and a Leo
Interesting.
once, which is my opposite,
Mm.
Aquarius, Leo. We actually had like our birthdays were actually exactly opposite. Like I was born on the 28th of January and he was born, I'm pretty sure, on the 28th of July, which is so funny to me. We were opposite in a lot of ways, but similar
Mm.
too. But yeah, I noticed that pattern, uh but I've definitely been attracted to people for sure who are not who
Yeah.
are not air signs or fire signs. So for sure, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there's one thing I do want to touch up. As
Okay.
we wrap up the episode, you wrote in our notes that Taurus should kind of question, or their homework is, what do I need to feel safe, loved, and resourced slash cared for? Is that one thing that Taurus should master?
Yes, I do. Actually, I think this is a great one to end on. So, if you, I think this is important for anybody, but especially if you have Taurus in your chart. Um, One of the biggest things that Taurus placements are here to learn and understand is value. And that's not just like the value of an item that you have. This is also like your own inherent value. It's understanding that like you are worthy of being alive and being cared for and being like sustained as a human being, like you deserve to live and you're worthy of living with ease and not, like I said, in survival mode. I guess so with that, one of the things that Taurus should consider is what do I actually need in life to feel that sense of ease and stability and to feel cared for? And the reason that I wrote the question as like, what do I need to feel safe, loved, and resourced or cared for is because Taurus in its highest embodiment shows us how to live with ease. And with ease is things like feeling safe and feeling loved and not feeling like you have to fight for safety or fight for love or earn it or something. It's something that you are worthy of. So how can you call that in?
Mm.
And resourced for, I said resourced for because Taurus rules, like I said, material items or things. So how can I, or what resources do I need or do I want to acquire in order to help me live this way? This could even be something like, this is a very like random example, but in order to feel cared for, I require like well balanced meals. So like the food that I consume, I want it to be like well balanced and healthy or natural or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's even things like that. So the last tip that I want to give with that too is another way you can think about this in your relationships or in just making choices in your life in general is, am I moving in alignment with my values? And that's a thing that I find for myself. Like one way that Taurus really resonates with me is that when I move in alignment with my values and I make choices based on that, things generally go way better for me when I do that versus when I just like abandon my values and I'm like, oh, it just like looks fun, but it's like not really aligned with what I value, but I'm going to do it anyway. That usually doesn't go so well for me. So I think that's another thing too that I would encourage you to consider if you are a Taurus or if you have Taurus placements in your chart. Um, what are your values, and then how can you actually make the choices that that align with those values. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely, this year I'm learning how to make myself feel worthy and again, find my value in life.
Yeah. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Taurus. And we'll be back the next month with, I think, Gemini season, right?
Gemini, that's right.
That's crazy. It's
Yeah.
been a year.
It's on the year. Yep.
Okay. Well, happy birthday, Taurus. And let us know if you guys learned anything from today's episode. And see you guys next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Time's been moving slowly, so we already